We as a clergy team, as a synagogue, as a community, feel very connected, and that, of course, makes watching the scenes that much more difficult, but it's always personal. Everything's always personal. This is hitting very, very close to home. On Tuesday, the Eaton fire, which swept through Altadena and parts of Pasadena, Rob Eshman writes for the Jewish Journal in Los Angeles, wrote a story about it. This is the fire that destroyed the Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. That is a synagogue that I ordained a number of the rabbis who ended up serving there when I was the dean at the rabbinical school in Los Angeles. I've spoken from that pulpit. I know kids who grew up there. It burned to the ground. It's a 100-year-old community. Cantor Ruth Berman Harris, she was searching for her husband that night through the thick smoke that engulfed the Pasadena Jewish Temple. Her husband, Lawrence, he had been beside her moments before, Rob wrote, but now as flames closed in and the air grew heavier, she couldn't see him. So she shouted, "Do you have the Torahs?" Rob wrote, her voice slicing through the chaos, trying to find him. And then there he was, emerging through the smoke, almost surreal in his calm, carrying one of the synagogue's 13 Torahs, this one a Sephardic scroll. It's heavier than the rest. It's encased in silver, etched with patterns of a long-lost homeland. We have two of these on Kol Nidre in this room, these Sephardic Torahs. They are rolled inside of it's almost like a Russian doll type of thing, where the Torah is inside of it and you open it up and they're ornate and magnificent. In 1934, a Jew named Samuel Nedar was an importer in Karashamar, Iran. So he commissioned that Torah to mark the death of his first wife. He eventually moved to Tehran when he remarried, and in 1967 he moved to Pasadena. The Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s destroyed Karamshar, and the synagogue that was housing the Torah that he had commissioned for his deceased first wife was destroyed. When Iran recaptured it in 1982, somebody was able to find that Torah and take it and bring it to safekeeping, bring it to Tehran. Of course, the owner, Samuel Nedar, was in Pasadena, so he wrote a 10-page letter, Rob reports, to Ayatollah Khomeini, the leader of the Iranian Islamic Revolution, to request from one holy person to another that the Torah be sent to California, the Torah that had been a part of his family. 6 months later, the FBI, they notified Nedar that a crate had arrived at the port of San Pedro from the Islamic Republic of Iran, addressed to him. And when the crate made its way to his home, he opened it and he found his family Torah, carefully wrapped inside, with a letter from the Ayatollah confirming that he studied Hebrew and understood the significance of this object. Nedar burned the letter so nobody would find him suspicious. "Do you have the Torahs?" she called out to her husband when she couldn't find him in the smoke of the burning down synagogue, and eventually he comes out holding the biggest one, this one, the one that survived the unimaginable twice. Why this story? At the end of Parashat Va'Yehi, Joseph says to his brothers, "I am about to die. I am about to die. Swear to me. Swear to me. When God has taken notice of you, my brothers, and brings you out of Egypt, don't leave my bones here. Take me with you. Bury me. Bury me with my family." And then Joseph dies at 110 years old. He is embalmed, as was the practice in Egypt, and placed in a coffin. In Exodus 13, so now we've gone through the Israelite slavery story, and the Israelites are leaving. Vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef imo. Moses holds on to the promise that lived through generation after generation after generation. Can you imagine what it would have taken all of those years between Joseph and Moses, and the first thing Moses thinks to do or knows to do when he is leaving Egypt, escaping what will be an army chasing after him? The bones of Joseph come with him. Why? Because he took an oath. He took an oath. God will take notice of you, and you will take my bones when you are freed. The rabbis have a remarkable take on what's one of the things happening in this moment. What they think is Shehaya mehalech arono shel Yosef im aron chei haolamim. The casket of Joseph was leaving Egypt, and then after Mount Sinai, traveling alongside the casket of eternal life, the box that was holding the 10 Commandments that the Israelites received at Sinai. So they say, Ma tivan shel shnei aronot halalu. What's with these two coffins, or one box, one coffin, traveling through the desert together as if they are the same? How is it possible that we would lead the community both with the bones of somebody who no longer lives and the word of God inscribed into tablets, which will be our future? Mativan, what is this? And they said, Hamunach ba'aron zeh kayam ma shekatuv b'munach ba'aron zeh. That which is lying in the coffin established the words of the thing that are lying in the crate. The coffin and the crate are the same, the rabbis say. How is that possible? Well, they came up with a pretty cool midrash. Joseph fulfilled the 10 Commandments. Joseph lived before the 10 Commandments were given. This is a typical rabbinic move to give the patriarchs and matriarchs a portion of the tradition before it appears in the stories, so as to say they lived already as Jews, even though there was no Israelite religion during the time of their life. It's a way to connect the two of us. How did Joseph fulfill the 10 Commandments? In the 10 Commandments it says, I am the Lord your God. I am God. Joseph, when he said to his brothers, don't worry, said, am I in the place of God? Joseph understands that he is not God, something that Pharaoh never really understood. In the Ark, on the 10 Commandments, it says, there shall not be before you any other gods. Joseph said to Pharaoh, it is God who I fear, and nothing else. Joseph had a fidelity and loyalty to the master of the world that none of our other patriarchs articulated out loud. In the 10 Commandments, it says, don't take God's name in vain. And when Joseph vowed to his brothers that they would bring Benjamin back to him in that first meeting before they knew who they were looking at, he said, by the life of Pharaoh, you will get my youngest brother to me. He didn't say youngest brother. You will get that young one to me. He did not take a vow using God's name. He took a vow using Pharaoh's name, because even then he wouldn't take God's name in vain. That's how pious he was. Joseph fulfilled, honor your father and your mother. How do we know? Because Jacob sent Joseph out to meet his brothers, knowing that his brothers did not like him at all and would likely punish him in some way. And yet, when his father says, I need you to go there, he says, Hineni, here I am. He would not transgress the words of his father. You shall not commit adultery. Well, Potiphar tried with his wife to set up Joseph, and he did not do that. You should not steal. Well, Joseph had access to all of Pharaoh's money the entire time and during those 7 years of famine and plenty. And the Torah sort of tells us, mostly tells us, he took nothing at all from Pharaoh. He did not steal. What is going on here? It's like, why do we need to equate these two things? And I think what's happening, or at the very core of this midrash, is that there is a deep sense of eternity, of a definition of life which is finite here on earth, but is far more because it transcends. Life transmigrates. Life blurs the boundaries of here and gone. Life, once it's blurring those boundaries of here and gone, is nudging us to see something bigger than what's in our immediate perception. Rabbi Yolkut taught, the Torah is eternal. Joseph lived as the Torah. Joseph became the Torah. Joseph, like you and me, therefore, is eternal. Gone? Yes, he's gone. But he is also right here. And he is also right here, behind me. There's a fascinating piece of Jewish law around minyan, around the 10 that are required to say certain prayers. If a prayer service starts with 10 people and somebody leaves and now there are only 9, and you get to one of those prayers like a Kaddish, a mourner's Kaddish, which requires 10, what does one do? One says the Kaddish with 9, because as long as it starts with 10, the fact that one left doesn't matter. In fact, you can go down to 6 and still say the Kaddish as long as at the beginning of that section of the service, it began with 10. Now, in some ways, this is pragmatic. You could start with 10. Somebody really has to go to the bathroom. You get to mourner's Kaddish. They don't show up. I'm sure the rabbis were thinking, like, we need to preserve the Kaddish, which has always been important to our tradition. But I actually think there's something far more cosmic going on here. When 10 begin in one physical space, somebody leaves, they don't actually leave, they are still there and present. And they're being held by the other souls in that space, there and gone. Our tradition understands the finite and the infinite to always be dancing one with the other. Always. Which explains a lot and leaves far more questions than we'd like. Do you have the Torahs? She called out. And I read that story each and every time thinking about the actual Torah she was carrying, this incredible, eternal, commissioned Iranian Torah. And she was saying, do you have life with you? And he appeared in life. What's happening now is awful, and I don't want to learn lessons from it while it's happening. And I also feel like at the same time, there is some kind of haunting beckon for us to hold on to our Torah, finite and infinite, ever so tightly, to become it, to live it in a way that we might not have thought possible yesterday. Because stepping into transcendence is a gift the Master of the world has given each and every one of us. And when we show up as the Torah, we define life. My teacher, Rabbi Artson, wrote this. I'll finish with this. He lives in Los Angeles, and one of our campuses, one of the AJU campuses, is closer and closer to evacuation. Flames scorch our beloved hills, devour our homes, incinerating memories acquired over lifetimes, destroyed in an instant. Smoke smothers a death-like blanket, blocking the clear California skies, swathing our community in a dark, dank blanket of soot. Normally in motion, the smoke looks solid and hides the light, but not hope. Our lives are more than our homes. Our memories rest in our hearts, not our albums. Our loves are stronger than these flames, unquenchable, life-giving still. The soul of people are God's true flames, and the light breaks through even the thickest smoke. The sun again will shine, and so will we. The objects, the sacred objects that hold our memories, we should not minimize them. We should understand that they represent life, and that when we hold them, we become one. with everything that was, is, and will be. It's a haunting beckon for all of us to hold on tightly, to become Torah, to live Torah. Shabbat Shalom.